you'll be.
Yeah.
Psychotechnologies
live.
Woo!
So welcome to Psychotechnologies number 32. I feel like this is exciting. The number goes up. You know, this.
Yeah.
I have a friend who he's a big fan of like numbers that count up. Like you should count things that only go up as like step counts, right? They never go down. You're like, I have more steps than today. After I had today and yesterday, I have more than, like, it keeps going up. The total
like cumulative stuff.
Yeah, it's like a experience meter in a video game.
Yeah, I love that. I play idle games sometimes, and that's the whole game is just like making the numbers go up.
Have you ever played a cookie clicker? Like the cookie clicker?
Yeah,
it's funny.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. It's super fun to watch numbers go up.
It's like it plays on my dopamine reward. Like at first, so cookie clicker is quite literally a game where you click a button and it says you made one
click a giant cookie.
Right, and it says you made one cookie, and then you click it a bunch more times and you make 10 cookies, and then it's like, why don't you can pay 10 cookies to get something that'll click the button every 2 seconds.
Then you spend your cookies on automating the cookie clicker,
right?
On like automating someone clicking the cookie,
right? And then so then you're like, oh, that seems worth it. I'm gonna spend 10 cookies, and then you're like, it's clicking and it's like slow, and you're like, well, I'm still gonna have to click this cookie button myself because it's a little slow. So you do that a bit, and then you get a little bit. You get like more financial resource to be able to spend on more cookie resources.
Yeah, because you get more cookies, and then you can get like multipliers. So then instead of getting one cookie a click, you get 2 cookies a click.
Right.
3 or 4.
Right. Each click gives you like 10 cookies, and like you get a big robot and a factory and a like 100 cookies.
You buy automated, and then
and then
you eventually like.
Well, after a while, you're like, oh, clicking this button is very inefficient because I'm still
you stop clicking the cookie, but you have to click all the upgrades.
Right, and then you're like, well, this upgrade only gets 2 cookies a second, whereas this one gets 5 a second. So I'd rather, like, my dopamine has shifted from the cookie button to the upgrade button to the like better upgrade button.
Yeah,
and then
it starts to get abstracted like much higher.
Right, but
and then you got
number on screen that keeps going up and up and up and up.
Yeah, but then they always, like, these games, they always have like little things along the way. So like they'll have like little jokes built in. So if you get enough cookies, then they do something like a cool animation or picture with so
it gives you like story. It feels like little rewards along the way. So here you are still clicking a button, but it's a different button, and this number is like spiraling up faster and faster and faster, but still, like, you occasionally see it, like there's another 0 on the end, and you're like, yay, another 0. I'm still just wanting this number to go higher. This is confusing.
And then it starts to go into scientific like notation and stuff. So you have like whatever number times 10 to the power of or like times e, like.
Right. And there's so it's a real exploration of my own dopamine system. Like, oh, I liked clicking the cookie a couple times, and then I liked being able to get more cookies, and then I liked being able to get even more cookies, and now I'm just confused about like this whole thing. I've just been clicking for cookies the whole time, even though
it very like messes with your meaning making, because like you're like, oh, I'm doing this so I can get the next level,
right?
And then once I have the next level, then I'll have a lot of cookies and I can buy like all the things that I wanted to before.
But actually, at the next level, the number just like moves a little quicker or something.
Yeah, like it just shifts from like a 7 to an 8.
8 per second,
yeah. In the cookie clicker game, you can like hire grandmas and stuff to make cookies.
Make more cookies, right? Automate, and then you like get factories that make grandmas to make more.
Yeah, and then eventually you can start like summoning cookies from alternate dimensions.
Yes.
But there are evil cookies as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
So
there's the other one of have you seen the paperclip game? The paperclip?
Yeah, same thing but for paper clippers. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're an AI and your goal is to maximize paper clips.
There was actually
which is like a
No,
huge
so
thought experiment.
once the genre existed, there's like a Breaking Bad one, like making meth.
Yeah.
As well. There's heaps of, like, you know, now that the genre exists, there's so many clicker matching clicker games.
I would love to be able to program that. It seems like pretty simple to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like and like I just have so much fun with that. I'm playing this one that's an idle game maker. So you make idle games and sell it, and like that's what you do.
Very interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about today was embodiment.
Okay.
Right. Okay. What the heck is
what
that?
is embodiment, and how do you talk?
Right. So let me give some context here. Who talks about embodiment? So embodiment is very much like if you hang out in the trauma spaces or the therapy spaces, you find all of these people who keep yammering on about this thing called embodiment and how it's important, and they'll be like, you can be quite easily disembodied, and they're like, why would we want to get embodied? What is this thing anyway? Right? That's the context of where we are. Now there are some.
No. I asked what it was, and then you move to like, okay, what?
Context,
why would we want to?
What is it?
But it's something like
what
trauma.
is embodiment? So I'm going to go with what isn't embodiment for a moment, and then I'll come back to what is embodiment. So there's a couple of therapeutically understood conditions where you can get very disembodied, where you can get very detached, where you can get depersonalized, where
like disassociation.
Disassociation, right? You feel like you're very much away from. That's right. You're very much away from what's happening. You may feel like you are walking through life as a zombie. You control the meat machine, but you don't really feel like it's yours or like you're in it. And generally, this is a good protective mechanism. It gets us away from the bad stuff. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes is people get away from the bad stuff, and then they stay away from what is real life and what is like being alive. And they forgot how to get back to being real and alive. And also, they're deathly terrified that if they come back, then bad stuff will happen again. And they don't want to. Who wants to have bad stuff happen, right? We all want to be away from the bad stuff and towards the good stuff. Unfortunately, this like awareness that we have takes us away from both the bad and the good together. So there's a whole bunch of people who are really badly away, and then most of the general population is just a little bit away. You know, we're just 10% procrastinating, distracted. We're a little bit just not really here when we're here. And
maybe it comes out more like distractible instead of
or just not having a good time, just a little bit away, or a little bit judgy, or a little bit like not really here, a little bit to the left or to the back, or just in our own little detached place. And so a lot of us, when you hang out enough in therapeutic spaces, it really does seem like there's a perfect spectrum from completely and totally away to all the way like not quite here. And I'd say many of the people in the world, nearly everyone, is not quite here. Like we're very close to here, but being really here, and this is being embodied, being like really here,
feels like really present in the moment, really, in whatever you're doing.
Right.
Like the kid feeding the duck.
Right. You're like, you have the bread. You're like, I'm gonna give this is last episode, right? 2 episodes ago. I'm gonna give the duck the bread, and then you're like, you give the duck the bread, and you're like, the duck ate the bread. It's like quite
you're just so
exciting.
You're there with what's going on. You're not like lost in thought while you're trying to have a conversation with you.
Right. So that quality of like I'm super engaged and excited is the same quality as if you're doing something really important. Like you're like, oh, I have to push this rock up a mountain. I have to complete my homework assignment. I have to whatever. This is really important. I have to do it well, right? Yeah, there's like that you can have a thought in the back of your head like, this is really important. I have to do it well. And then obviously what happens is having this is really important. I have to do it well is like pressure, right? And
Yeah.
so we're being present, but in order to be present, we have to cope with all this pressure, and suddenly we're not present. We're like being pressed to procrastinate because this is too important to work on.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, I have to do it and I have to do it right. And then you get like all those things instead of like doing the activity and
Right.
like instead of doing it right, you're worried about making sure that you're doing it right.
Right. So immediately we were present. We were like, I have to do it right. And then that pushed us off presence because suddenly we're ruminating about how we have to do it right. And it's super important and it's distracted us. And we're sort of like off center again. And we're like, this is too important. This is so much a big deal. I need to do this right. This is a big deal. This is like almost overwhelming to me how much of a big deal this is. And I can't seem to focus, and I'm no longer present. I'm no longer embodied because it's a big deal. Right. So that's often what happens in our lives. We are not embodied because, for one example, it's too important, and so we're off. But embodiment is that state of really being present, really being with the thing that's going on, really being sort of. I'd almost call it like at the top of the mountain. There's like, if you imagine a mountain with a very small area at the top, and you have to climb up the mountain and stand, and if you're not careful, you just slide off.
Mm-hmm.
So, or at least
like at the peak.
Right. So you need to be at the peak of what you can possibly, your output. And obviously you can train so that you have a really flat peak. So you can like play around in that space up there and stay at the peak. But many people probably, before you start working on yourself, you realize that you have no peak at all. The peak is very sharp and you like get there for a glimpse and then you fall down again. Your peak experience is like fleeting and tiny and very frustratingly hard to pin down.
Mm-hmm.
But your state of embodiment is likely to be your peak. And the cool thing about embodiment is it's almost like it gives you directions. So here you are, you're like, oh, any moment you're like, if you feel you are not at your peak, you have an opportunity to check your body. So put your attention towards your body and feel and check on the sensations going through your body and check if it is uncomfortable. And if your body is uncomfortable, chances are you are avoiding that discomfort. You have gone like, oh, it's kind of, there's sweat down my back and or let me find a real discomfort here because it's better if it's real.
Yeah, it's like, because like if your body is uncomfortable, then you're gonna naturally avoid, like people naturally avoid uncomfortability. So
well, there's also that the buildup of uncomfortability is what tells me to go do something. So let's pretend I need to go to the bathroom, right? As that, like first I'll be working hard and then I'll get there like, oh, you need to go to the bathroom, and then I'll be working hard and then it'll get louder and louder and louder. Where either, my lifetime conditioning says, you have to stop and go to the bathroom right now or you're going to pee yourself and that's really bad. Or I just pee myself, one or the other. And then, so that uncomfortability builds up until it fully does distract me from the work that I'm doing. And that's a fairly good mechanism, except that sometimes we get in a place where we can't seem to get started on the thing that we're trying to do because there's so many other uncomfortabilities that are building up. I sat with someone once and they were doing a uni assignment and they had to write 2,000 word report. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and meditate with you. And they sat down and they were like, they put the laptop out and then they're like, no, I need notes. And so they had to go get a notepad and then they put the notepad down and they were like, I need a glass of water. And they went and got their glass of water. And then they were like, actually, I want some food. And they went and got a bowl of nuts and they put the nuts there. And then it was like 15 minutes of these, maybe I need another pillow for my chair. And I was just kind of doing my meditating thing. So I was sitting there watching them not get the thing done. And I was fascinated by how many ways a person will not get a thing done. So they got a pillow and then they needed another pillow and then their phone was dying. So they got a phone charger and then, here we were 15 minutes later, they were like, all right, I'm going to start. And then they started and then they stopped and then they came back and then they were, clearly many parts of their being didn't want to be participating in doing this. So eventually they got further in it, but it was just remarkable to see the ways in which I could see myself also pulling off I don't really want to do a thing and I don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I hear that. That's definitely like very relatable.
But having said that, like once you do set up your environment, once you get the pillow right, the water, the this, the that, then you can, then all your distractions are taken care of and you can focus and sit and concentrate a lot better.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I have that now a little bit like with the kid, because like when we go out, it's a whole thing. Like I have to do a whole prep work, all this prep work. But
take a bag with food and a towel and like
yeah, like I gotta go fill up all the bottles, gotta measure out the food, make sure there's diapers, make sure there's what like make sure there's receiving blankets, make feed him, change him. Like there's it's like 15 minutes to like before I can go out, but it doesn't feel like I'm like so I went for a walk with my brother today, and it could have been the like, okay, let's go for a walk. Oh wait, I have to do this, but I have to do this, and it's like rushing. But it's like because I'm like, yeah, like I'm in that calm place. It's okay, we're going for a walk, and like there's all these things I need to do. And so then I went and did them one at a time until they were all done, and then we went for a walk.
Nice.
And I think that's also true with like the work sometimes. Like sometimes when I'm working, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go work now. So all these things I need to do, and I need to do all this prep. So I like go pee, go get some water, go get some food, like set everything up nicely, and to make sure maybe get my wife to babysit or whatever, like however we're doing that.
So I have like check my Facebook, check like clear out a couple notifications so that they're less likely to distract me over the next hour.
Yeah, like the phone sometimes, but actually sometimes with the phone there's a bunch of stuff going on. I'm like, well, that's part of the work. So then when I go and sit down, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to check my Facebook. I'm going to respond to the messages. I'm going to check my WhatsApp. I'm going to check my email. I'm going to, and like
then I'm going to sit down and write.
Yeah, and sometimes it's writing, but yeah, like some of that is like people are talking to me, and I have to, I have to not only it's like I have to respond to them, but I have to figure out what do I want. So sometimes that might be even like even sitting and thinking might be work, right? Like, oh, I have a bunch of stuff to do, and I don't know exactly what it is that I have to do today. Okay, but I'm gonna start working. So I sit down, and first thing is to figure out what I have to do, or what do I want to do, or something.
Yeah.
And like that's to me, like that's how I extend my peak. Where all those things are sometimes those things are distractions, and like you don't need, like if you're full, you don't need food.
Right.
But
or you can work when you're hungry.
Yeah. I mean,
and you might work badly, but you can.
Yeah, but you shouldn't, I think. Like if you're like really hungry, like if you need a meal, if you're hungry and you need a meal, you should just do that first. Like that's the first thing on the list that you have to do.
Well, but also sometimes like if your work was super urgent, if someone was like, I need you to email that to me right now so that I can, you could do that before you ate food. So you could
do like one, like you could do a quick response, but you don't.
It may not be as good work because you're all distracted and hungry, but you can do quick work.
Yeah, like, and you can make these decisions. Like you can respond to text, but sometimes those, like, it depends on the text, right? If it's like, hey, just confirming that we're on there, you can be like, yeah, we're up, and like maybe that's just, that doesn't need to make the list. Like that's the thing. Like for me, anything that's less than twice the amount of work it would take to put on the list or figure it out, if I could just do it without thinking, then I just do it.
I definitely. So short messages I will respond to right away.
Yeah. So if I get a thing, I'm like, okay, I have to send this guy a sentence, then I'm just going to send the sentence. I'm not going to put it on the list. But if they want a thing, like I've got this email from someone, and I'm like, okay, I don't actually know what to do with it.
They're like, how would you like us to proceed in this matter? And you're like, yeah, I don't know.
That's a good question.
A great question. Think about it I also don't know how to proceed in this matter.
Yeah. And I actually didn't know what to do. I sat and thought about it for a while, and I didn't really know what, I realized I didn't really understand the email. And so I consulted, and I'm like, hey, what does this mean? What's going on here? What should I do? And then I figured it out. I'm like, okay, now it's like just, and then it became like a very low priority thing that I would like to do, but it's not that big a deal. And so then that's, like it's done or it doesn't really matter. that much.
Right. So there is definitely a skill around prepping for work so that you can have like prepping your environment. I used to call it setting up your workplace as a skill.
Yeah. Yeah. And recently
the bottle of
actually,
water on the desk.
yeah. And you kind of get it when you do bigger things. So so like we had to, now we're sleep training Jack. So we reset up the place. So he has his own playroom now. And there's like a couch in there, and that my computer wasn't used to be in there, so we had to move it. So that's like a whole thing where I had actually, the day we did it, I had work to do. I had to write an email and send it, and I had to deal with my computer. I'm like, let's do the computer first so I can take it out so that I can deal with email whenever I want. And so that was a whole thing of like taking off the computer, and then all these other small tasks sort of showed up while we were doing that. And we did it, and then at the end I needed a break because that was a lot of work. It's like moving furniture and setting things up.
Right. So embodiment. This was the thing that I wanted to explore.
And so so this is sort of like for me, for the embody, is like taking those things that will like take me out of the task and being like, I'm doing a different task. I'm not doing my homework. I'm doing my life. And this part of it is, well, I don't really do homework anymore, but I do actual work. So I'm not doing work, I'm doing my life, and like the work part of my life. Like I'm doing the work part of my life. I'm not doing work. And then in that there's work to do. But there's also the setting it up and all that stuff around. And then that helps me keep functional. So it doesn't feel like I'm jumping tasks. Do you know what I mean? Because I do find like a big part of the disembodiment is you're jumping tasks. And I think a lot of times reasons why people need to jump tasks is because they can't actually do the task without other tasks.
Right.
So they can't do their work unless their stuff is set up and they get pillows and all that stuff. Or maybe they can, but they're just trying to distract themselves because it's unpleasant for them. And then they can't do their work because they're unpleasant because they can't be inside their body. And so even like I would count like a meditation. If I'm avoiding work and I'm sit down and try to understand why I'm avoiding it, I would consider that as part of like my work life. Because your
work-based protocol. Some sort of setup that helps you get into the work.
Yeah, you're managing employee essentially.
Yourself, the employee.
Yeah. Like I'm, So like I think of myself as an employee and as a boss, and I have that relationship with myself, and it has to be a good one. Don't necessarily have those like sexual boundary relationships.
Boss, I have a report to make about myself. For myself.
Yeah, but this is a joke. But yeah, for other people.
Right. So embodiment. How do we get? So I've tried to paint like what is embodiment. Embodiment is somehow being like more with your body, more in your body's experience, and more I'd say attentive to the sensations that are going through your body.
Yeah, that's how it seems like you described it. Usually, like in the past, I've heard embodiment as relationship to something. So you're embodying something.
Oh, like,
and that's usually how I think of it.
Like a character, like you're embodying a confident person or something.
Yeah, or you're embodying archetypes or big.
Or I'm embodying an old grandmother by being hunched over. I put on the posture, and then I put on a little bit of the voice, and now I'm your grandmother.
Yeah.
I can embody quite literally by putting my body into the shape of what I think of that character.
Yeah. Or like spiritual stuff, like you're like embodying the virtue of Christ or something.
Yes. Yeah.
You go through
I am the divine mother.
Yeah. I like embodying divine stuff. It's more fun.
Right. And ideally we want to be offering a touch of the divine to all of the lovely people in our world that we interact with, and make their lives wonderful and miserable.
Yeah.
We want to be showing them the wonderful side if possible.
Yeah. Yeah, you can show them that, but those I think are two different things. So you can show someone a thing like, hey, there's this thing and it's cool and it exists and let me show it to you.
Mhm.
And then there's like being it.
So there's also so in embodiment, we want to embody ourselves here. So there's this way that we can embody other people or embody other characters, which can be useful at times.
Or attributes, yeah.
Yeah, or attributes. But actually, what we more want to learn to do with embodiment is to embody ourselves, which is possibly.
Tell me about that. How do you embody yourself?
That is a confusing angle, right? Because
what does that even mean?
The nice thing about archetypes or characters, like if you want to embody the Joker, like a trickster, comedian style, you know where to go with that. You're like, oh, I just need to think like a comedian, and I'll crack a couple jokes and try and make people laugh and set it up. If I want to embody a father figure, then I'm going to feel like you're a good son, Daniel.
Thank you.
But to embody myself, frustratingly, there's no schematic of what the myself would look like if I want to try and work out how to embody it.
Because who are you?
Yeah.
And I mean, in that moment, you're a person trying to embody yourself, so it starts to get like recursive as well.
Right.
So are you the person? You're trying to embody a person, trying to embody a person, trying to embody a person, right? And then, like,
right. I'm doing all of that ideally, or I want to be. And here's the thing: if I'm embodying myself, hopefully that means I'm a little bit closer to the meaning making as well. So that is when I'm like, oh, me, I'm going to want to pick up my book and write something down in my book here, right? I'm going to like scribble something. But if I do that with a little bit of embodiment, then I'm going to be mindfully present to the way that I'm doing that. I'm going to be attentive to, and I'm going to be making sure I write the way I intend to write. I'm going to like my experience is going to be a sharper version of what I was intending to do already.
This is interesting. Let's explore this.
Yeah.
The image I got from you, and I may not be on of this, like it might be like not what you're intending, was you know Mario Kart? You ever played Mario Kart?
Mario Kart, yeah.
Yeah. So you play Mario Kart, and if you play like there's a version that you can play by yourself where you go around the track and then
there's a ghost.
And then there's
and then you race yourself.
And so you race yourself. And so like I had this image of you trying to be the ghost.
Or be the same as it's kind of like there's a version of me that I intend to be, right? I want to be the best.
You trying to drive the same as the ghost, like you're trying to be in that space, like be in the same location as the ghost at the same time.
Right. Well, it's not just the ghost. It's so I know I might know how I've done things in the past, and actually I want to be doing them better. So I want to be like beating the ghost. So here I am knowing that I'm going to try harder this time to beat the ghost. And then obviously there's this cool thing that happens that we were saying earlier. I try harder and then I end up getting pushed out, right? Because I'm obsessing about how hard I have to try and being me, and then it distracts me. And so I need to like counterbalance that and come back in to stay embodied.
So you're like trying to beat the ghost and like kind of self-aware that you're trying to beat the ghost.
Right. But not trying too hard.
In the realm of self-aware that you're being the ghost and just trying to beat the ghost.
Right. It's a real dance. and we've done that thing where like I'm going layers and layers and layers again. Right. Because that's what it's gonna look like.
This sounds complex. And then when it comes to like having complex experiences, like aiming for complex experiences, I mean, that feels disembodied, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like there's something disembodied about that whole experience.
So interestingly, if we aim for the simple experience of just, I'm going to pay attention to my body, I'm going to be present to the sensations I'm in as I'm in. Like if I get distracted, I want to notice it right away. I don't want to be like 5 minutes over there before I come back. I actually want to be with that distraction as well, and coming back as soon as I can. So yes, it seems like it's going to be complex, but if I aim for the simple most, being here with my body, being here with the sensations that are going through me, I'm actually going to get closer to than if I aim for the, like, I need to be the best version of myself, and then I need to
yeah. Okay, yeah, because I was thinking about it. I think this is a description of what's going on, not what you're actually trying to do is to pay attention to what's happening inside you, and like
Right.
what you're experiencing and the task on hand, and that is the simple thing.
Mm.
And then there's these other things that sort of happen as you try to do that.
Right. So again, embodiment as an instruction. There is an attempt to, and this is a very poor instruction, right? Be inside my body. Well, how the heck do I do that? What does that mean? Well, that means I want to be noticing where my attention is already, and keeping my attention present to my body, and making sure that if my body is uncomfortable, I want to be aware of it. And this becomes very meditative, right? So there's two options with discomfort, two main options. One is I'm uncomfortable, and so I'm going to get a pillow and like put it on my chair, right? So I can go and I can fix the discomfort by changing something. And the same goes for if I'm leaning too far forward and my spine is starting to hurt, I can lean back, right? So I can change it. And that's if it's fixable. If it's just a pillow, then so one option of response is I can do something different in response to this. The other option is, if I'm like, Daniel, we've been doing this podcast forever and I'm just damn awkward. Like, I keep feeling awkward and there seems like there's nothing I can do about it. If there is in fact nothing I can do about it, what I need to do is be like sharply present to that suffering. I need to be on top of it, right? And by being on top of it, I will get closer to accepting and being compassionate towards myself for all the suffering and feeling like I'm awkward. And then it'll probably just dissolve fairly quickly. So that's
really experience that awkwardness and let it take over you. So you're like embodying the awkwardness.
Right. That's right. So if I'm having the awkward experience, I want to be embodying the awkward experience. Happens to be, I don't feel particularly awkward, but that would be an example of a thing that I want to move closer to. And as I do that, as I get more present to what's going on for me, I'm going to have less suffering with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get to the nuance of what is it to feel awkward, like which sensations tell me I'm awkward. There's a little bit of sweat. There's a little bit of like tension in my posture. There's a little bit of, then I'm going to break those apart. What are they like? What's it actually like to have those? And as I do that, they're going to sort of break apart, and then I'm going to be less awkward in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is something I resonate with. This is something I don't do it too much anymore. But yeah, I did this a lot, where it was a lot of like, because there's just these things like going on and that I can't deal with, or I don't know how to deal with. And so I just sort of like become it and like get caught in that pattern. And then once I'm there, then I can start to like make decisions and like make good decisions and retrain that pattern. And then it gets easier to deal with, because it will become like less impactful and it will become more reasonable. Okay, it's like when you become the feelings, then you can retrain that feeling.
Right. So question, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 100, how embodied do you feel now?
I feel pretty embodied. I would say like 90. Wait, would you say 1 to 10?
Sure. I don't mind. Pick a scale.
I would say like a 9, maybe.
9 out of 10. 9 out of 100?
No, 9 out of 10. Right. 90 out of 10.
Oh no, that's a lot of embodied.
That's too much.
That's too much, right? So question, with following that, can you try get more embodied? What happens if you try and get more embodied?
Sorry, I feel like embodied in this conversation. Like I got a little bit of distraction going on outside, but there's like my physical body is like, I'm not in my physical body so much.
Oh, interesting.
Which maybe was the actual question you were asking for.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in that, like
somewhere
Can we
else.
get you? What if we try and get you into your physical body? What's going to happen? Like working. This is the like, let's work with it live sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, but I'm not going to be able to play the role of person having a conversation so much.
Well, in theory, you're still Daniel having the conversation, even if you get into your body a bit more.
Yeah, sorry, I'll have a harder time having a conversation about embodiment if I'm in my
In the
body.
body, right? Too busy being in the body to like talk about it potentially. Yeah.
Okay. So I always use. We can do this. I always use.
What are you doing? How are you going to do it?
I always use the syncing technique because
Sync.
it just works every single time.
Yeah.
So
what's the instruction?
Close your eyes, relax, and then start to feel yourself sinking inside your body.
Like falling down into.
Yeah, and it's starting to pull you. And let go of whatever's happening outside you and just feel that.
I like that. Do I like so paying attention to a sensation of like falling and sinking, right? Do I fall through the body to the other side, or just like try and get into where the body is and sort of stay there?
You're overthinking it. You're gonna fall into your body, and then the falling takes over. And right. So don't worry, like forget all the instructions, like just the falling and the feeling of the falling, and then you'll feel your body, like you'll feel things start coming around, and other things are gonna start being alive.
Oh.
But they just move slower. It's just as alive as everything else. It's slower. And it's slower and it has more mass. And you don't know what's going on, and it's hard to talk about because like the words don't, at least for me, like maybe different people are different, but like words become dumb. You know what I mean?
words are less able to describe the experience than the vivid experience that I'm having.
They lose, also words lose meaning. And like I find like when I get in, like when I start to like sink in and like be in that place, like it's like the bullshit of the world, stops mattering.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. But like it's not true really, totally. But
well, some of it stops mattering and some of it is still there and just
some of it doesn't matter, yeah. Because there's a lot of bullshit, and if you don't sink into your body, then you don't, you gotta regularly like let go of it. So that's good. I usually don't do that in the middle of conversations though, because then I find like people just, because like you just you're just not participating in the conversation, right? And then people get annoyed because you went somewhere else and you're not in the conversation, and then they don't want to talk to you anymore, which is totally fair.
Okay, so I sink into my body. What did I notice, or what did you notice when you sink into your body?
So all the things I said, but then also there's like a tingliness, there's like a body fuzz. And then if you go really well and you really just like accept it and go with it, you can start to let go of everything else. And then like outside world, people talking, like none of that matters. You're here with you. Or whatever it is, how we conceptualize it. But you don't really conceptualize it. Like it's just the words don't really want to describe it. Because like it's not like whatever, like who cares, right? Like it's just experience it and then you know it. You don't need words. If you need words to understand what's going on, then you're not in the place,
in the phenomena of the greater expanse of experience that is greater than words can describe. You're too busy.
I don't know if it's expansive. It feels like it's the thing. Huh?
It should be expansive. Nah, I guess after a while, like you get used to expansive, and so it's not. It's
Yeah. It doesn't really feel expansive to me. It feels like it is expansive, but it's like bottom expansive instead of top expansive. So like when we have conversations, like it's very expansive. There's so much stuff to do, so much stuff we can talk about. There's so many places we can go. So it's very expansive. This is like the conversation gets restricted, but the internal, like what's going on is like the reality of the world is like what's actually going on is expansive, but it's not expansive. It's like it doesn't expand. It's just infinitely big already.
But your maybe like your ability to pay attention to it suddenly is attentive to a greater expanse.
Yeah, like the space open, like there's a lot more space, but that space is already there.
Suddenly
you're just in it now. So I would say like it doesn't expand in that sense of like getting bigger. It's already really big. It's already infinitely big, and you're just in being there. Like you're just going into somewhere that's infinitely big already, I would say. I don't know if that matters. It's a distinction for me, but I don't know if it
matters. Right. Okay. So we do the sinking feeling. We get in. We feel like we're sort of a little bit more. I end up in a place where my attention is more on the sensations in my body than it was before.
Yeah, that's the right place. But like accepting, if you accept the sensations without judgment.
Right, because some of the sensations are like a little bit uncomfortable. Many of them are fine, and some of them are a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah, you can. It's fine if they're uncomfortable. It's important to accept that they're uncomfortable. Like accept. You can at first, if you want to, you can first accept the uncomfortability, and then you can accept the baseline sensation that's causing the uncomfortability. Because like generally we think of uncomfortable as already an interpretation, and that's true, but also it doesn't have to be true. Like it could be that, you know what I mean? Like that's already there and you're not doing it consciously. It's different part.
Right. So I have like a little bit of tension at the front of my chest. And you know, as I have become present to that tension, I realize that tension is kind of uncomfortable. But I have the tension first and then I have the discomfort.
Right. And so
with the hunch that any tension would be discomfort, but this tension happens to be the one that's here. And I've now decided that I don't like it.
Right. And accept that. Like, don't judge yourself for not like it's tension and you don't like it, and you're accepting that there's this thing you don't like.
Yeah.
And that's true. And to me, that's like when we're talking about the 7 factors of enlightenment. So these are the bottom 3 of those. So this is equanimity. I mean, equanimity is really how I deal with it, but when you're there, it's a lot easier to do. Equanimity, concentration, relaxation.
Yeah.
And you're doing, because like, you don't really like, maybe there's a little investigation, a little joy and stuff, but like that stuff is very secondary. Like that's a result of, like, if that exists, that's a result of what's of the more underlying stuff. And so you don't need to reject, like this is how I strengthen those 3. I don't reject the other 3 or the other 4.
I mean, we talked about it previously as a balance, right? It's a scales. Yeah. So you lean a bit more this side on the scales for a bit.
Yeah, well, you're not leaning, like it feels
just
like
temporarily.
Like the mindfulness is deciding that this is what we're doing now.
Right.
You're sitting with and exploring and being in that realm. And then the other 3 are they could be there as a result, and like it's fine, don't reject them, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's like equanimity towards them instead of more cultivation. And then the concentration is your ability to actually go there. Like we talked about this, and like I went there a little bit, but I'm not able to stay there. And whether that's because I'm doing the podcast and I've decided like, and this is actually, I'm concentrating on the podcast, not just doing the random meditation that I feel like doing, or whether that's the meditation, whether that's like my hindrances have taken over and convinced me of like, whether this is a delusion or reality that this is what I should be doing right now, I think is a good question. But like, yeah, if you're able to stay there, and I mean, people talk about this, like Sadhguru talks about this, where he sat, like where he's able, like these people are able to sit for like weeks and months, and I don't know if that's true, but you could definitely do hours.
As a meditator, sitting on a cushion doing for several hours.
Yeah. Like I'm being in that place because that place feels good. Like it's not, it doesn't like feel good like sex feels good. It feels good like it doesn't feel good. You feel good. And it feels however it feels. And so it's like one of those things where you can just be there for a really long time until your concentration breaks. Until like something happens and you're like, oh, I should be doing more. I should be talking to Elliot on the podcast or whatever. Or it should be, I got to check the stove, right? For no reason. Or a good reason.
Or a good reason.
Yeah.
Right. So embodiment. Are you in your body? Are you out?
I'm more.
You're more. Okay.
I'll tell you, the problem with embodiment is I can't talk as fast. Everything's slower for me.
Right. So I find that too, but what I end up finding is that the things that I say are more true to me, or more emphasized, or
they're more impactful, they're more valuable.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I'm not losing, I'm usually gaining value.
Right.
But it depends on the situation, because sometimes you do need to do that. Like right now, we don't want to have dead air. Right. So I have to talk, like we can talk slow and there's no rush in the conversation. We have to keep going. I can't just take 5 minutes to sit by myself and embody.
Well, so I'm also, I try and make my base, my regular living place, on the more embodied side. And then I can take my mind out and go to abstract places, and I can talk about the distant future, but I'm also aware of leaving the embodied place in order to do that, to throw my mind into a distant perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that as well. I know what you mean. I try not to throw it out anymore. Because like I used to go like more outside my body. I don't go too far from my body anymore. Although doing that meditation made me realize that I really should be like sitting and meditating. Because it went like too easy, and it got like that, that drug you get when you go deep. Like when you go deep into meditation, you get like a sedative. Kind of like your body just gives you a sedative.
Oh, there's something that I kind of call a body lock. There's a state called access concentration, which is part of the whole jhana process. And I will be, when I first sit down to meditate, I'll like itch my head and I'll like get more comfortable and I'll like readjust. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, I'm no longer doing those movements. And my body is more stilled in some way. And that seems pretty normal, that there's a like settling in process. And then once I am in, there is no movement until such time as like the suddenly to make a movement to like stand up or whatever is quite different from the settling in, from the like being settled in place.
Yeah.
And that's like you described as a little bit of a sedative. I call it a body lock, that my body is rigid in place. Okay, we're now here and we're staying here and we're not moving.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of partial paralysis, that it's like when you dream your mind doesn't actually want your body to run around about the dream. And so you get this sense of like, oh, my body is still now while having the dream-based experience.
Yeah. So this is kind of like before you get the body lock, you get a sedative. Like if you notice, like if you think of like, I always compare this to like getting high because that's what I have to do. So if you have like the body lock, like, and you count that as high, there's like a ramp up to it. And usually the body lock is like when you notice what's going on. Like you've been holding still, and then you notice that the sedative has kicked in, or it's hit a certain threshold where now you're locked. But if you can notice that ramping up, it's like a sedative. And then you can, instead of body lock, you're just really relaxed and not moving. But it's different. Like it doesn't feel as rigid. Like often with body lock, it's like this part of me is very relaxed and then the other part isn't. And I just like let that go. But with this, it's like all of me is just very relaxed, and I don't want to say lethargic, but like something like that.
This is where so if I refer back to episode 30 again, where we were talking about the 7 factors of awakening, this is where I'd be like, now you have to add energy, right? That's when you get into this state of stabilized, sedated, like mildly present, sedated, relaxed. And that's when you need to like turn up the energy, right? And don't undo the like stillness, but turn up all the energy. And then you have something to meditate with. Like there's a mind that has lots of energy that now needs the skill of meditation.
Oh yeah, I don't do that. I think I know what you mean. I think I used to do that because like that's like a high, right? Like you're in this state, and then you can use that energy to get like really good experiences, like really good peak experiences, because your body's locked, and then your mind can do all these things. But I find it's better. Like I don't need to meditate. Like I don't meditate when I do that. I'm just experiencing the thing that's going on. Like I'm just experiencing the world or the universe or something. Like I'm just experiencing it. And like that's better. Like that, it feels better to experience this experience than it does, or it's not even necessarily experience, but it's either experience or experience what's going on or whatever. Like there's shit going on. Like that's how you do jhanas, right? Like you get locked, and then you do you like focus the energy. So you'll focus the energy on a certain thing, usually like on a certain point, and then that will
feel good. And then you feel from the feeling good.
Yeah, and then you focus on feeling good, and then you go, and then you get these like orgasmic, experiences. And I'm not knocking them, but like those are great.
Well, they are great, and then after a while, you mature in your understanding of them, and you don't really feel like getting them as much as you used to because you've matured in your understanding. So it's not that they aren't great; it's that you just get a bit more used to them.
Yeah, because it's not about, for me, it's like not about those experiences. It's about experience, like per se, almost.
Wait. But before you'd had those experiences, it totally was about those experiences. And then once you're like, you've got them and you're getting used to them, then it's no longer. Then you're like,
there is a stepping stone, and that's why I'm not knocking it, because like there's a journey. I have done that, and it's been valuable, and I'm not going to like shame people for doing that.
They're also, it's just nice. The jhanas are really nice. You get to have them. They're like, oh, this is really good. And then you get lots of really good, and you're like, cool, I've had lots of really good. I'm going to do other interesting things. But you need to get lots of really good before you're ready to go do other interesting things.
Yeah. You need to get, like, this is a big thing, like for the beginning, for like starting on the meditation dharma or whatever. Like you need to be getting wins along the way.
For sure.
I think some people, they try to sacrifice like everything, like for one really big win, like, oh, I'll do this thing even though it's unpleasant for 10 years, and then I'll become enlightened and I'll feel good about myself.
Right.
And like don't do that. Like you should be getting results at a consistent rate. Like
I would say for my journey, it was day by day. If I was not getting results day by day, I was switching methods.
At the beginning, that's you want to get Yeah, like you want to get, it's not even day, like at the beginning you want to get, usually I think like
Well,
3 hours.
meditation by meditation sort of thing.
Yeah.
If this meditation was not doing anything like it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, then I'm like, okay, time for a new method. And
Yeah.
I did that consistently while I was like impressed by various meditations until I sort of started running out. And then I went back to the ones that were valuable and I kept going and I kept continued
And you
to
want
go back.
you want to start, you want to keep expanding as you go. So at the first it's like, really I think the minimum is kind of like you want to give it like 3 hours to like do a whole thing and then see at the end, was that worth it? It's hard to do less than that. You're gonna get a lot of false negatives.
So what did I do? I did I followed my that seems interesting sort of internal compass for, oh, that seems interesting. And so I was already moving towards whatever type of meditation it was. I'm like, oh, this seems interesting. And so I had something to start with. And then I did it for a while. And you said 3 hours, but I wasn't spending 3 hours on something where I was like, this.
Yeah, it's maximum
stupid.
3 hours. Usually they're going to be shorter. Yeah.
Right. Well, I wasn't spending 3 hours on a meditation that I didn't think was going to do anything. I was only spending 3 hours on things that I was already interested in. And that was usually a good hint for myself, is if I think it's going to be interesting, I'm going to keep doing it. And then I'd spend my 3 hours, I'd be like, oh, this is kind of cool. Or I'd be like, oh, or I'd spend a bit of time and I'd be like, there's nothing much here. I already get it. And I'd move on.
Yeah. And I think that is a great way to start. Like, start finding like small chunks that you're interested in.
Well, I was only ever propelled by what I was interested in, which I think is really important, because people, I suspect, hear about this weird meditation thing, and then they try it and they're like, what is the point of that at all? And then they talk to someone who's like, yeah, this meditation is great. And they're like, I don't get it. Why would I go there? And then they go there and they're like, they've convinced themselves that, first of all, that it was probably not going to work. And then they do it and then it doesn't work. And then they're further turned off meditation because many of the meditations they've tried haven't worked. But if instead you're like, well, that doesn't sound so interesting, but this one does, then you're led by what you are interested in. And later you might come back and be like, oh, that one sounds interesting now. But if you're always led by what you're interested in, then you can do a lot less wrong. With eventually up encountering the part of you that keeps pressing the click button of interesting, and you're like, stop it.
No, you don't stop it. Like, you push the button, like, that's interesting, and then you experience yourself pushing the button.
Right.
And then it's like meta. Like, then you become a thing where interesting is encompassed in it.
Well, you got options, right? One option is, if we never push the button, then everything becomes interesting, because everything that's left, well, first everything becomes boring, and then if we come to accept that, then it suddenly becomes interesting. And the other option is, we've pressed the button, congratulations, you've won. And then I forever won, and I never need to press the button ever again, because I've actually pressed it. I got the thing that I needed when I pressed
it. It's just taped down, and now you're done.
You're done, right? Well, there's, and then like, so interestingly, it's not that you never want anything again. It's that you occasionally are like, oh, I want another thing, and then you're like, oh, I can push the button and go get it, and be happy to go get it, rather than like, I can only be happy when I go get it.
Yeah, I think people tend to ration that stuff out for themselves. Like, oh, like, I have to ration out what's interesting, versus just going to the end and until like all the interesting is done. Like, on an experiential level, like, all the interesting is done, and then you're left with all your motivation that's not you being interested in things. And that gets really interesting. Like, that's where the real interesting things are.
Right.
It's what are all the interesting things that transcend your interests,
or transcend your button, at least.
Yeah. And you kind of get that, like, when, and like, this is the thing, and I think like a lot of these things, like the jhanas do it as well, where it's like, okay, like, you're chasing pleasure, like, okay, here's how you get pleasure, and then you just get a bunch of pleasure, and then you're like, okay, you done, you're happy, good, okay, let's do some real shit now.
Well, and again, that pleasure is really valuable for resourcing you to do some possibly difficult things in the world.
Yeah, that's one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, right? Is pleasure.
Right. The
It's
tranquility, bliss, the rapture,
it's PT. It's PT.
the bliss. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, joy or rapture, but it's essentially. I think the way we're talking about it, like it's essentially pleasure, but it's not like physical pleasure. It's like physical pleasure like stimulates the pleasure part in your brain or your body or whatever. Like
I'd say
it
it's the
stimulates pleasure.
feeling, the mental experience of, oh, that's really good. Like,
Yeah,
like, and
yeah, and
in
then
that sense,
you just be in there, and then
mm,
everything else fades away.
right. And so I would say that if we tried to pick a word for that, that word would rapidly float away. So if I called it bliss, and then
Well, it's
the
PT.
bliss is actually kind of a little bit more nuanced over here, especially in English.
Yeah,
But if I tell you it's the ooh, that's really good feeling, like that thing's that ooh is
yeah,
gonna stay where like so close to that experiential phenomena. And we can call it bliss, and we can call other things later.
yeah,
We can call it rapture at certain time, like ooh, wow. But that ooh,
yeah.
that's really good. It's kind of harder to describe, but yeah.
Yeah, I think and it's interesting because I do think like a lot of people they do try to avoid pleasure in life. Like they or ration out. They're like, oh, if I found the button that
Right.
would give myself pleasure, I
Hedonism.
would just push it all day, and then I
Which,
wouldn't do anything.
to be clear, the first time you find the button, you kind of push it a couple times. Like you're like, oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
do
Yeah.
that.
But then experientially, what I have found, and I suspect what you have found as well, is that you get bored of doing that after a day, after a couple of days. You're like, okay,
Or it's
pushed
not.
it a lot.
Yeah, there's boredom, but there's like yeah, and you like breaks and stuff. But then it's like more at the end of the day, it's just like okay, well, like I'm satisfied,
Mm,
and it's not really like pleasure you're after. It's like satisfaction,
mm.
and then you get your satisfaction, and then
This is okay. We're getting into the jhana cycle, which is
yeah,
an
yeah,
entirely
that's the jhana
nuanced.
cycle, right? Like it, I always forget. I'm like, no, it's like this, and it's just like other words to describe the phenomenon. Um, yeah, I mean that's the jhana cycle. Like they go through and they're like, guys, this feels the best, and this is essentially what the Buddha said. He said this is the way to feel the best, and you
Mm,
just do it, and then, um, I mean, I don't know. At least for me, like I obviously like I didn't do it properly. I still have these things. But I think like most people don't do it properly because it's really hard to do it like 100% correctly.
mm.
But yeah, like and then you just get used to it, and then like this is feel good, and then you want to feel good with other people. It becomes like very voyeuristic after a bit, right? Because you're like sitting there feeling good by yourself, and then you get good at it, and you feel good with other people. Like there's always like that like a barrier of like, am I allowed to do this in public? Am I allowed to feel good in public, or do I have to like be miserable like everyone else? Like Daniel, it's inappropriate. Stop feeling good.
Not being so happy, Daniel.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
because
don't
it's
know.
the thing, you get happy, and like people like if you fall in love for the first time, or like I remember when I was younger, like you kiss a girl and then like you come back and you're just so happy, right? Like it's just like that's the best, right?
Mm,
And like you can't stop smiling, and people are like, like they make fun of you, but they accept it.
mm.
Or girls also, I see this also on girls, like the same back and forth, and and then yeah, but like if that smile, like you don't get that smiling where you just can't stop smiling, and then you're like, am I allowed to do this in public? Like it feels inappropriate.
Mm. All right. I'm gonna swing back to embodiment one more time.
Yeah, sure.
Here's Daniel smiling in public, and I'm like, Daniel,
Yeah,
embody
because you
your
got me
smile.
started, and it like kind of like it was going. So now I'm like really happy and stuff. But that's the thing, like this is why I'm not happy all the time, is because people make fun of me, and then it hurts, and it's mean, and so then I have to hide it.
I would be wondering if there's a way that you can still have the happy internally and let like a little bit of it out. Which
Yeah,
I
that's what
assume
I
you are.
do. Yeah, like I try to manage that and stuff.
Hmm.
Because also a lot of it is like setting up my life where because it's mostly freedom that I'm after anyway. It's not really happiness so much.
Hmm.
And so like setting things up, and that's like boundaries and stuff where people do things, and I'm like, that was inappropriate. Like you just were mean to me for no reason. I can be happier because people stop being mean to me. But also true happiness comes within. It doesn't matter what other people do, but also really does. And then also, this is I think a big one. Why people like go on the path want to change the world is because they want it to be a place where you can just be happy and like that's and still participate in the world. You don't have to be miserable. People think if you're happy, you're not taking stuff seriously. But I'm starting to realize it's the other way around. Like if people are doing stuff and they're miserable, they're not taking it serious. Long-term things, they're not taking it seriously. Because if you were taking it seriously, you would realize that you're going to be there for a long time, and you can't operate. They're not taking it seriously, or they don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to manage themselves. They don't know how to take themselves. Because you can't be doing things that are making you miserable for long periods of time.
You can do it for short periods of time in exchange for something. But if you do it for, I think this is what I would call chronic. If you do it chronically,
you're not going to, you're either not going to do a good job or you're going to burn out.
Well, you're going to get, we have names for these conditions, right? Chronic fatigue, chronic pain. They're really sort of very, very bad medically to have these things. Chronic misery would not be a fun one to have.
Yeah. Like I think with the childcare stuff, like I don't think of what I do with my kid as childcare. I think I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna hang out with him. Like we hung out and played blogs the other day. And like today, oh my god, can I show off? Today I got a thing from a friend. It's like this laser thing, it shoots lights at the sky. So there's all these lights like dots and they're all swirling around. My brother is here from the States, so we all just like hung out and like laid on our backs and stared at the ceiling and watched all the dots go around. And like he's there doing it too. Like it's interesting for him. You know, he's a little more interested, I think, like he's more fascinated, but like that's something I like to do. That was fun for me.
Nice.
So I don't really do childcare. I just hang out with my kid. And then like change diapers and feed him and stuff.
I feel like this is like a relational frame when you're like, I am the parent, you are the child. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But when you can like he's mostly like you're trying to train him to be autonomous and entertain himself and so you don't want to be the
a lot of things. Yeah.
I'm responsible for your entertainment 24/7.
You can't do that. You'll
burn out. You can, but you'll just burn yourself out.
Hopefully and they won't develop properly.
That's hopefully you'll learn fairly quickly. Hopefully they'll teach you that you can't do it. Like
yeah.
Well,
you're the parent in that situation. So
this is a kid-based phenomenon. I suspect that kids don't know what they're doing and they don't know where the boundaries are. And so if you let them, they will walk all over you and they'll push all the boundaries.
Yeah.
And so you need to like work out how to healthily manage their boundary confusions.
Yeah. And you do want to negotiate with them, but there is a huge, like there's like an infinite power imbalance, right? Like, right, like he doesn't even know what, like he wouldn't be able to follow this conversation.
Right.
He doesn't understand words yet. But even like words or concepts or anything. So like I'm always doing that, but it's like it's fun for me. I enjoy this. I became a parent on purpose. It's like super fun, yeah. But it's got to be fun. Like I do see the way some parents, like we have these friends that they won't let their kid out of their sight, like more than like 5 or 10 feet away. And the kid, I think, is already like 3 or 2.
Okay, and so we don't want to get too specific because we don't need to actually name them. But
it
would be concerning behavior if it continued. In my perspective, I don't know who you're talking about, but in my perspective, if that behavior continued over the long term, I'd be rather confused and concerned.
I mean, if we're not forget long term, like already, like they're crazy, like it's driving them crazy, and like they can't leave their house, and they're always together, and puts a lot of stress on their marriage. I shouldn't get into too much detail about it, but it's like that's nuts. Like that's not
Okay,
short term.
Let's be concrete and specific. Daniel says, if I were to do that, I would think I was nuts. Right?
No, I think they're
I
okay.
also
Well,
think
whatever. The political
I'm trying to
correctness
be
is
nice about this and not call them nuts.
okay.
I
Yeah,
have no
let me be
idea
a
what
little
you're talking about.
specific. I think that it's there's something pathological going on, and they're not it's not being dealt with in ways. And like I don't know, like I don't super like them because they're they made me wear a mask during COVID when I didn't really like, when it wasn't really like, and the whole world was like stopping wearing masks and I didn't want to wear a mask, but Ontario's laws took a while to kick in to change. Whatever. It's like things like they're super aggressive about it. So like you can't tell other parents how to parent their kids, right? Like this is kind
that
of
is a big no-no in all parenting circles.
yeah.
Or actually, there's one that someone raised with me recently that I've been thinking about, which is that and I have a confusion here because I don't think I have this problem, but they described to me sometimes other people feel judged by my actions. And specifically, the person I was talking to was vegetarian or in the vegan sort of category. And they were not, the person I know is not a pushy vegan, but occasionally they have to tell people that they are, in fact, they'll pass on the meat because they're vegan. When offered, not like let me invite up the opportunity to proselytize about veganism, but more on the gentle side of no thanks, I'm vegan. And then often people, oh yeah, that was the line. So someone was telling me that they had they met someone who was a vegan, and they said to them, I aspire to be a vegan myself, but I am not in fact a vegan myself. And it was taken incredibly badly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this was the remarkable, the conversation was, I was so surprised that it was taken badly. And we sort of drew the conclusions that you made their identity you made a weak bid to like steal their identity, right? I'm bad. I could be a vegan, but I'm actually not. And so I'm a pretend bad aspiring vegan. And so they got
that's how they enter. If someone said, "Oh, if I'm like
I aspire to be a vegan,"
if they're like, "I aspire to be that way," I'm like immediately like get super excited and be like, "Oh my god, for real? Okay,
here's how I do it. Here's what I would tell you about it."
Yeah, like what's your interest? Let's explore. Let's build. Like I get super excited, right? Which I do try to tone it down because people don't. They don't necessarily want like a huge amount of energy just thrown at them when they're like, I don't know, offhand comment. But yeah, damn. See, that's what I'm talking about with the vegans. Oh, I didn't say that. I was just thinking that. But vegans, like, if you're like a non-pushy vegan, you kind of have to say that. Like, it's almost on you to say, like, oh, I'm a vegan, but I don't judge other people and I'm not pushy about it. I'm not addicted
because you have to differentiate yourself from the pushy vegan.
Because like the standard is if someone's a vegan, like they're probably a bit of a dick. But that's not their fault. Like they're malnutrition.
I am so glad to have the friends that I have, and this conversation was well nuanced and included the idea that there's two models of veganism. One is the like purist, like live a life that has no impact on animals, and one is the like staged or like anything that gets you closer. So the question is meat reduction. Should we encourage people to reduce their meat? And the answer is either yes, that's great because meat reduction is good for the environment, is good for the animals, or no, that's bad because that's telling people they've done a good job when they haven't gone all the way of becoming vegan.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, they do that where if somebody's taking an incremental step, they get like judgy and negative about it.
Right. So fascinating conversation of vegans, fascinating people. But right, there's this idea that people sometimes feel judged by my actions. And I'm confused about it because I don't really have it. But you described that sometimes you're happy and then people are like judging you for just being happy. They're like, cut that out.
Yeah, that happens. But it's kind of like Because like if you're happy, like if you're really happy and excited, like that's kind of manic energy a little bit. And like people can't really tell the difference between like mania and someone who's just really excited and happy. And I think that gets, yeah, like that can get uh they often think like I was saying, like they often think that you're not taking stuff seriously. And like that does come with those real strong like happiness hormones or chemicals or something or whatever's going on in your brain, where you do like you can get more easily caught up in things. For sure. Like,
Oh, so I have realized where my confusion has come from, and that is because I was listening to recently Ram Dass lecture quoting Gandhi. Gandhi was asked by a reporter. He was getting on the train, and the reporter was like, "What can I write back to people?" And Gandhi grabbed a piece of paper, scribbled something, and handed it to the reporter. And the piece of paper said, "My life is my message." And this is widely taken as a good Gandhi quote. And that is, the way that I act should demonstrate to other people how to act. And I very much agree with this sentiment. And that's why I think the phrase "people are judged by my actions" hits me in a complicated way, because I'm like, but my life is my actions. If people are to judge me for my actions, then like judge me negatively because of how I'm acting, then that's like, but my life is my demonstration of how to be.
Yeah, and that's why it hits hard, I think. Like it hits hard, especially for me.
I think I have an extra confusion because I don't usually feel like people are judging me for my actions, but this other person was, and I was surprised. I was surprised by the struggle they were going through, and I was wondering why I don't have such a either I feel like I'm judged appropriately, or I don't feel like I'm judged negatively, particularly for my behavior. I don't know. I've got a strange relationship to this idea
of getting judged for your actions.
People feeling judged by my actions.
Oh, people feeling judged by actions.
Right.
I don't know if I have that as much.
As in, like, I'm not a vegan, but if I were a vegan, would the people around me feel like they were lesser people because they were vegan? Because they weren't vegan.
Actually, that has happened. Yeah, that has started to happen to me. That now that like I'm more living my life in this way, in this like spiritual path, and being more open about it. I have gotten comments like that, and like to a certain extent, it's like to a certain extent they're right, at least on my side. Like I am kind of judging them, right? Like if like there's this guy and he only focuses like on the words that you say, not like the spirit behind it. And like I was a little judgmental. I was like, I don't want to live my life this way. And I'm not enjoying these conversations because it's just like words. And I don't care about words. I care about meaning.
That's one I find interesting because
and it's not like he's like leveraging it for other things either. Like I think politicians or writers, they do focus on that and they try to, but this is just like there was no end.
So socially, I moved into the hippie crowd and then back sort of like relaxed out of the hippie crowd. I'm still friends with a bunch of hippies, but I don't feel like my identity is strongly hippie. And the cool thing about the hippies is they pay zero attention to the words and every attention to the spirit behind it. And that's really cool because I went through this phase of my words were not good at saying what I meant, but the hippies, the integralists were really good with this too, that they know what you mean, even though that's what wasn't the shape of your words.
Yeah.
And then as I headed more in that direction, I was able to get what I meant and my words to line up a lot better. And so now my spirit and my words are congruent, but for a while there, my words were a little bit like everything is, and it's all blah, as opposed to like it was a bit sort of oversweeping in the way that I meant. Because I was still a bit confused about what I meant. And then it was nice to find the community that accepted me and allow me to sort of nuance better. And then I cleared up my complexity a bit.
Yeah, and like that's beautiful. And I'm still, I do pay a lot of attention to the words and stuff because like the culture that we're in, but it's Yeah, like because I'm alive, and like that's the thing that's always salient for me. Is I'm alive and I'm dying. Like I'm gonna die one day,
Mm.
and
That are like
this is
life's
never
too
my
short to
time.
fuss about the words.
Like if you want to live your life that way, that's fine. But like I don't. Like that's not fun.
Mm.
Like it's fun, but it's not like on the scale of the experience you could be having you could be having in this moment. Like this is not like this is nothing. You know, like it is fun times. Like there's some fun in semantics and like, oh, you said this, but then I said this, and you said this, and like you know, you do that, and like there is practice and there's things to do there, but like you want to do that for a higher purpose, right? Like lawyers are really into words, but they do it so that they can enact the spirit of the law, or you know,
Mm.
build a society or help someone or whatever. Right? Like they're doing it for a reason, and like the reason is what's important, and also the words are important. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Mm.
yeah.
There's a real need to understand these. And for me, I needed to explore each of these territories. I needed to explore the words and the meanings.
Yeah,
And so that I could get an understanding of what those territories did, and then get those
yeah,
territories lined up.
and that's learning, and I'm always down for learning.
Hmm.
I'm always down for learning, but he's not learning. He's just like this is how he operates, or this is how he thinks you should
Well,
operate.
there's also a dream, right? The dream is that if I fix all the words and I get the words to be saying the right thing and meaning the
Yeah,
right thing, then I'll
yeah,
live in a perfect world where people do as they
yeah,
say, and words mean what they should mean.
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's an ideal, and we live in a
That's not
world that is a
real.
little bit harder to make happen.
No, it's not hard. That's impossible. It's not real.
Well, I would like to live by my word, but
Yeah, you can live by your word, but like it doesn't matter.
I can't
Like give
enforce
me
everyone else
any
doing
sentence,
things.
like any sentence, and I will find a perspective in which this is a horrible thing to have said. And it's like it doesn't matter. Like I'm really good at this game. Like I could do this with anything. But like you don't win. Like there's no winning that game. Like you just
Well, you win by being the most outraged, right? How dare you say that? I can't believe you would insinuate that
no,
I couldn't
that's
win.
not winning. You
Daniel, I
get the
can win
trophy.
anything. I bet
Yeah,
you I can win.
yeah. You get the trophy. I'm the most outraged, but you don't win. Like at the end of the day, you go home to a miserable life. And sure, you have your trophy, then you can polish it and you can see your face in it, but you don't want to see that face. So you're just gonna keep it dirty in the corner because you can't bear the shame of even looking at the trophy of how. And like, what do you get? You get nothing. Like at least like Olympic people, right? Like if they win, like at the end of the day, they go home and they're like superb athletes. You know what I mean? Like being in that kind of shape, like your life is better. But
Mm.
imagine like there was like an Olympics for like who's the most out of shape. Like you should like don't do that. Don't play that game.
Yeah. Well, okay, but there's something more complex here. This is super interesting because with suffering, right? Um, as I mentioned earlier, that there's this idea that I'm enjoying this week, which is the eye of the storm, right?
Mm.
So uh how do I describe? So when there's a big storm, there's like a hurricane, and if you are right in the center of the hurricane, you
It
look
goes
up,
around in
there's like,
circles. So the middle
right,
is really
you're in
calm.
the middle, the middle is still, and you look up, there's a clear patch of sky in the middle of the storm. It's the eye of the storm, but everything else around is like storming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this relates to suffering because when we are embodiment, right? When we get in line with the eye of the storm, there's no pain. There's just things are, right? But as
Yeah.
soon as we're a little bit off, potentially it's really bad, right? As soon as I'm distracted, I'm really distracted. As soon as I am a little bit off, I'm really off. Or like as soon as I'm worried about the project, I'm really worried about the project. And then I'm incredibly averse to even starting the project, and I have to leave the project to the last minute and then sit down at my computer at midnight on the last day and like type it out because I'm like all of the like the storm has pushed me so far away that the only way I can do it is like when it's so bad that the eye of the storm is on top of me, and then I'm like, oh, I can think and I can type and I can write
Yeah.
and
It's like the calm in the crisis.
right. So this is the interesting thing. So wildly enough, like if there is a suffering experience, right? what I want to do is run away from it. That's the first thing I want to do. But practically speaking, what I want to do is move closer to the sensation of the experience. Because as I move closer, what will happen is I'll get the eye of the storm, right? So I have my hand in the fire. First thing I want to do is pull my hand out of the fire, right? But that makes sense, right? But if my hand is too cold and I want to heat up my hand, but only the right amount, I want to keep my hand near the fire and like pay attention to that shift from cold sensation to hot sensation. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's a sweet spot. And then, so I want to stay with it, get the sweet spot, and then I can like bring my hand out of the fire. So, but like I want to be moving towards the suffering in a weirdly paradoxical way, because the faster I move towards it, the sooner I move towards it, the quicker I solve the suffering I can get out of it. You know, if I have my assignment that's due in a week and I procrastinate a week, I'll feel miserable all week and do it at the last minute. If I just do it now, then I can take the whole week off and have a good time, right?
Yeah.
That's the trade-off. I could, if I could force myself to do the assignment right now, I could have cut all that suffering because I've responded to it super urgently. I've responded to it. I've cut all the suffering, and then I'm done.
Yeah, you do all the things in your own vacation. Like it's not like whatever happens is not up to you.
Right.
So there's no
so I really want to, like, paradoxically, even though the assignment was suffering, I knew it would be bad, I wanted to head to it as soon as I could. The same goes for the outrage trophy, right? I want to, if there is outrage, if there really is outrage, I want to head straight towards it as soon as I can. And then I'll be in the eye of the storm, and then I can be at peace, right? As opposed to always staying away from the outrage.
Let's explore this a little. Let's explore like this, like right? Not the meta, but the meta, but in relation to this.
Right. Wait. Before we do, so that's the ideal. Okay. The ideal is that I can be in the eye of the storm, and then there won't actually be outrage. I'll have made the world a better place because I will have expressed the outrage, and then we will have solved it, and then everything will be better. Practically speaking, I can make a worse world by being constantly outraged at everything and like dancing around in many outrage places and like maintaining a constant flow of outrage, and I can make the world worse. But the ideal is that I could be in the eye of that storm, and then I saw the outrage, I caught it, I named the unspoken things that we need to keep present in the room, that we acknowledge the native people or the people of the other genders, or when I say guys and girls, I failed to mention the other genders, and I should have mentioned that right away. And thanks for bringing that up, and I appreciate that. Have a pat on the back. Thank you very much. Now let's move on with the show. I need to be able to do that, or I need to be able to save us from the outrage, right? That's the ideal. Practically speaking.
Okay. Let's break this down. Let's explore this. Let's explore this. This is the whole thing. You're trying to like rush through like, this is what you do. And I'm like, yeah.
Let's break it down.
Yeah, so I think there is something about like someone has an issue and they're like harping on something and they're just like holding on to it. And if you want to have a conversation with them, you got to address that thing, or that thing has to come up, or else you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. That's why I like the phrase, what is your problem?
Yeah, don't.
Nuclear.
Yeah. So you can't use that term because it's being cool or whatever, because you guys know why. Because it's not going to work. They're not going to respond well. But that's essentially what you're looking for. So so I think like in our circles we use like, oh, what's really salient for you right now?
A good meditator speak for.
Yeah, for what's your problem, dude? Right. No, but it's like what's distracting you, like what's on your mind, what's going on. But because we can't say what's on your mind, because we have distinctions between the mind, the body, and the spirit, and the emotions, and the psyche, and maybe it's in one of the other places, not the mind. So you have to say like what's happening right now, or what is this moment? That's how.
What's going on for you in this moment?
Yeah, that's like a therapist talk. Like, what's going on for you in this moment?
I happen to like the phrase, "What are you noticing now?" Because it's quite a bit more neutral than presuming something is happening for someone else.
Yeah.
Just what are you noticing now?
Yeah. What are you noticing now? And whatever it is, I will be outraged.
I was writing the description of our video as we
I
go,
am outraged.
but
I
I
am
am not paying
appalled.
attention. Yeah, absolutely.
I think there is something though, like if you formulaically respond to someone's outrage or by like, let's say even this way, which is like a good way of doing it, of like addressing it, they have this like control over you and over the conversation that I think is unfair and doesn't
Right.
work well.
I like
Like
you mentioned control because I suspect that some of the outrage culture, I want to broadly paint the brush, the outrage culture, is about a shift in control, right? Because if I am, this is the neat thing about outrage, if I am the most outraged, or the neat thing about many emotions, if I'm the most emotional, I get the most attention paid to me. It's a power shift. If I'm the most outraged, and then I get the power, right? So I went from a person who was disempowered by whatever was going on to highly outraged, and then suddenly the power shifts back to me. So it's an even accidental and unconscious strategic move to take power. And I would say that with power comes great responsibility.
Well,
power control.
I wouldn't go that direction. I would just say like this on a systemic level, like any system or any like group or movement or whatever, like group, any people coming together, and whoever speaks is the one who's the most outraged is is toxic. Like that's a toxic environment. That being said,
like we need to prioritize the most outraged person feels like a toxic environment. Is that what you're saying?
No. So like it depends. Like I think in my house, we prioritize whoever's the most outraged, but like no one ever gets outraged, so it doesn't matter. Like functionally speaking, it doesn't matter. But we don't.
That's an interesting point. So in a low general
like my kids get outraged sometimes.
Well, like in a generally low emotional environment, right? Everyone's pretty chill. If there is like one emotion, if someone's like, I'm excited, we want to preference the most upregulated emotional experience. We want to like focus on that for a moment, right? But if there's a like highly activated system, like everyone's stressed and outraged all the time, then we want to preference the like down regulating stuff. Like the person who is the most calm, cool, and collected should be at the top of the ladder, and then we're like, I like how he's calm.
Like
we kind of like him. So
why don't you take control for a while?
Right. Right. So in fact, what I'm wondering about is within one body, like one system of the body, you can have much of the system calm and then like one system free at a high intensity, or you can have much of the system activated and some of the systems calm, right? And these are different states of the body or physiology as well as the psyche at once. And so I'm wondering, like, if, let's say, for example, I've gone for a bushwalk, I'm walking along and I get bit by a snake, right? Most of my system is fairly calm, and suddenly I'm like triggered into like physical freak out because I've been bitten by a snake. Right?
Well, now your whole system is activated, so now it's unless you're calm, okay. Unless your response is calm.
Well, my proposal is that I, as the whole system who is mostly calm, needs to urgently address like the tiny snake bite that I just got. If I don't do that within a couple of hours, I may drop dead, right? Or I may like start losing my senses. I may like the poison might start getting to me, that sort of thing. So it does make sense for a generally calm system to react to that like that dysfunction, that like loud, I got bitten by the snake, my ankle's going, like I want to respond to that really quickly. That makes sense. But then if my whole system is activated, if I'm in a war zone and people have been getting shot and I'm freaking out, and then like I return to the bunkers for a night, I want to be able to sleep, right? So that I can be ready for the next day, right? So then I want to, like, my whole system's just going through PTSD, right? And I want to be able to like,
you need to like calm down and let whatever's happening happen.
Right.
It's so that you can deal tomorrow.
Right. So I need to be ready for that. That's within one body. Otherwise, I'm going to give myself a heart attack with all the stress I'm having, right? not to mention
Yeah,
being
otherwise you can't do that long term, right? Like you
yeah.
need to take those breaks and stuff. Yeah, I think like for me, like I think what you're saying, like even both examples where like it's always like the calm person or time or part that's making the decisions. And then the outrage is usually, or the activation is usually like the thing that you're dealing with. So
Right.
like to me that does make sense. Like if someone's like, I am outraged at these things, like you don't get to be in charge if you're outraged, but yeah, you should have like someone should attend to you because you obviously.
That's an interesting point that the person who is outraged should not be the one calling the shots, but should definitely get the attention to deal with them because they're outraged.
Yeah, they're panicky. Yeah,
they're in an emotional state. They're not stable and calm to make good decisions for themselves or other people.
Yeah, and you need to be calm. Like in order for good decisions to happen, and you need to do it calm.
Calm while taking into account all of the sides.
Yeah, it's not just calmness. It's not like, well, I'm the most calm, like a monk sitting in a cave. Oh, like, okay, now you're in charge of like this department in this thing that's like, like what should we do? Should we? And then they're like, I don't know any of these people or any of these things, or yeah, but I'm the most calm. But actually, like I think there is some truth to that. Like I think that's a big part of like the meditations and stuff. It's like you're being calm, and then you are a calm person, and you're good at making decisions, and people should come to you for life advice and things like like for hard decisions. That's the idea. Execution is like, who knows?
Right. I do want to say that I'm gonna swing back down to embodiment one more time. I feel like
no, please. Like this is, I think, all part of embodiment. Like I think we're cycling through it.
So in terms of embodiment, we've talked about like a high activation or a low activation system, right? What I really need to be able to do if I want to get the most out of the world. Sometimes I exist in a world that is low activation, and I want to be able to make the right decisions in low activation. So I don't want to be, I'm bored, I want to cause some drama in low activation. And I want to be like, this is calm, this is good, I'm going to make long-term stable decisions. And then sometimes I'm high activation, right? I'm in a very stressful moment. There was just a car accident nearby. Who knows what's going on? And I'm in the high activation environment. And my body's all up and like freaked out. I need to be able to make a good decision there as well, right? And this is why embodiment is important.
Yeah.
Right? I need to be able to
that decision usually is like, get to a safe place and calm down.
Right. Well, it may be like, make sure everyone else is safe as well, like separate.
Yeah, create a safe environment.
I just saw a punch up happening. I need to like pull the people apart from each other and tell them to calm down. Like, so, but I need to be able to act as effectively when I'm highly upregulated as I do when I'm downregulated. And that's a super important thing to know. Like my body is highly regulated. Someone may just punch me when I'm busy trying to break up the punch up that's already happening, right? Yeah. I need to get ready for that to happen. And I need to be able to be calm or, not punch them back, even though everyone's very tense right now.
Yeah.
So that's a real skill.
Tension, but the thing is like just because like there's a situation that's tense doesn't mean you're not calm. And even if you're aware of that tension and you can feel the tension, but that tension is not necessarily in you, that tension's outside. And I have been in those situations where it's incredibly tense, but I'm calm. And then I'm able to like, usually like someone will get set off but whatever. But like assuming people are acting like somewhat reasonably, it's like kind of like stuff where like, okay, this is a thing. And they usually want to de-escalate, right? So it's like, this is a thing we can all agree on. Like this is, and the first thing is there's a lot of tension here. There's a lot of things. I'm going to try to see if we can like get some common ground and we can all just calm down. And then you do that. And then everybody's acknowledging each other. Everyone gets validated. Everyone's needs everyone agrees that we want to meet each other's needs. And then like, okay, I think we should start here. And then you kind of start there, and then you can do that, and then as it goes, I actually I have a lot of fun dealing with tension, as long as it's like outside me. It's bad when it like gets inside me. But even if like I have skin in the game, I usually don't mind it so much. It's fun. I just don't like it when they do it unnecessarily.
I would also say that sometimes it feels quite alive. Like, it's quite exciting. It's quite lively to be part of it, which means that it can get a little addictive because there's like a good thing in alive, but obviously there's also a good thing in relax.
Yeah, I know some people that love crisis season, so they'll like, and they're good in crises.
So we don't want to accidentally create more crises because they're exciting and interesting. We want to stay.
They're always in crisis mode, and so they're good at it, but like the long story, the long thread of their life is suffers from that.
Right. Well, so I have a complexity here because I want to exercise, like I want to be fit in terms of the ability to act in crisis as well as the ability to act out of crisis, right? I want to be exercised. I want to be practiced and trained in that, but I don't want to always be going from crisis to crisis in my life, right? Yeah. So I'm torn because there's no such thing as an emotional gym in our little universe that we have right now. We have physical gym.
You gotta make your own gym.
I know. I'm considering making my own emotional gym.
We should make a gym actually.
Right. Do like reps of like anger, reps of like fear.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things. Like that's the thing is like there's so many of them that like would be good. But like like even like this crisis thing of like I don't know how we do that, but yeah, like
you just need to get people on the same page of like, okay, this is going to get uncomfortable. We're going to create tension. It's got to sort of be real. Otherwise, like real enough. Yeah. It needs to be upregulated. It needs to be real enough. Otherwise people can't get into it. They're like, this is fake. It's fine. But we need to, like, if we want to train for real life tension scenarios, if you want to be managing a company and working with people and there's stress involved, you need to be training in stressful conditions.
Yeah, you need to be able to handle stressful conditions, and some of the training needs to be in stressful conditions. But you don't want like to me, if you're in a company, like if your company gets into stressful position, it depends on the stress. Like if it's an outsized opportunity is its own stress. And like that, I guess you don't want to avoid. But yeah, like if it's like it's like a thing where like you're like, oh, like we could lose everything because something or bad things can happen. Like that's kind of a management failure. And that doesn't mean that the management is bad, because there are some scenarios in which like there are some companies or ways of working where like that's part of that's the job, is like you're going to always have these crises, and like if management can take it down a level or make it more infrequent, then or build the team that can handle them, then they're doing the job. But I think in general, like I worked at a company, like a cooking company or like catering company, I should say, and they were always like close to the deadline, you know what I mean? Like they're always like, we need to finish the stuff and get it out and this and that, and like where it's crunch time. But it's like after like working there for I think like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was like, wait, we're always in crunch time. Like I'm not doing this anymore. Right. I'm just doing my work, and if it doesn't get done, it's not my problem, right?
I feel like with food, like food has a life cycle. Like in a couple of weeks, that food has gone bad, sort of thing. Like you buy fresh ingredients, they only last a week or two.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be rushing and panicking.
Right.
Like these people have been in the industry for like decades, right? Like they know how food works.
Right. So what I was gonna say is it's possible that like short deadline on food has moved from the food into their like processes by mistake.
Maybe.
But I don't actually.
I think it was a manipulation technique to have their staff work harder.
I think that I've seen that across various different corporate. I hear lots of stories of different corporate dramas, but essentially, if you can pressure your people into feeling like they're under the squeeze, then they will not have enough time to think about how stupid that is and how it's a bad idea, and they'll be busy like being under the squeeze the whole time and like doing extra.
That happened, like that happened to the beginning, and then I like caught on what's going on, and then when I would try to talk with people, they were like, not into
We
it.
don't have time. We're too squeezed to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right.
And then but I'm like, you're always squeezed. And then no, but they're not always squeezed. And then when they're not squeezed, they're like, okay, we're done. That was too hard. We need to just go home, everyone. Like, we're just done. Go home. No bandwidth left until like the next squeeze. And so like that place wasn't really run very well.
Yeah, I totally believe you. And
it wasn't bad, but it was like, I was like, okay, if we like, there's a bunch of improvements we can just make. Like, give me like, like $100. We'll just get like more equipment, and like everything will be much more efficient. We'll less stress, better work environment, and get things done more effectively. But yeah, they're always under the stress. So
I imagine that.
I don't know.
Here's my theory. My theory is that if you took those people and just turned the stress down, they'd actually work more efficiently.
The workers would. I don't think the management would, though, because the management, I think they don't know what they're doing. So they're just like that's how they learn. So they're just copying. Like they don't think about it as a holistic, like, okay, I'm running a business. This is my goal. My goal is to like
Daniel,
even maximize
you're too smart to be an employee.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're one of those people who is not suited to be an employee because you're too good at what you do. And so you're suited for like realizing how terrible that is, and then like moving up in the ranks and then managing. So
that's what I want to do. But the thing is, I'm not good at moving up ranks and stuff. Like I didn't figure out you had to like kiss people's asses and stuff and like all that. Like I didn't realize like that it's actually all politics is moving up, and until recently, like embarrassingly late in my life, and so that didn't work. Yeah. So I'm just doing my own business, and that will work probably.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, interesting. I've been reflecting on journey of my life, many projects that I have done. It seems like I am bottlenecked in me, like the limit of the success of my various projects that I have engaged in is how much time I have to do them.
Oh, how much time you have.
And in that sense, I am the bottleneck, and I need to be better at outsourcing. And so I've been thinking about, what is it about scaling that I find difficult to do?
Yeah. I'm curious about that. I have a guess, but it's just a guess.
I'm interested in your guess. What's your guess?
So I had that as well. For me, like, and I think you might be the same.
I don't have an answer yet. I was like, this is early reflections. Like, I need to solve that problem. If I
we could do this like properly. Just like throw something out. I'm just gonna throw it out because it's fun to guess, not because I want you to live your life this way or something.
Sure.
Not because I need this to be true, but I think it'll just be fun.
Sure.
For me, it was I felt like if I told other people what to do, then that was bad. Like if I'm like sitting around doing nothing and I just tell other people to do stuff, like that conjures a very poor image, poor leadership in my mind. And there is something about like also like I feel like can I tell people to do things that are for me, like that for my benefit, and like without paying, or I guess like paying and like all that relationship. I feel like I'm kind of like stealing other people's stuff, like their time and effort and things like that.
Yeah, interesting. So if I think about
because then I'm like kind of an authority figure, and I don't like that.
Usually with tasks, I think about them until such time as I work out how I'm going to do them, or how I can get to doing them myself, and then I do them myself. So I don't do the step of like, oh, something needs to be done. What is it? And then how would I get someone to do it? I do the like, something needs to be done. How am I going to do it? Like I immediately think like about myself taking actions.
There's no space there or opportunity to consider that someone else might do.
Right. So I need to, I think it feels like I need to change my process of like considering what needs to be done on a like, and get that image in my mind. And then, and rather than like, I feel like I limit myself to what I can do. Right. I only think about things that need to be done that I could be doing. And so I need to change that thought process so that I'm like, what actually does need to be done. So
Yeah.
if I want to
And
spread
like, what typically
Psychotechnologies
needs-
live, I need
yeah.
to like, what would it involve to spread Psychotechnologies live? And then think about who I can tell to do those things or ask to do those things.
Yeah, because you're not going to be able. Yeah, you want to pick something you're not going to be able to do yourself.
Well, I can do some of it myself, but
Yeah.
if I can't, if it like will take time, then I'm not going to be able to do it myself.
Yeah. And then that forces you to like, and then that the project becomes like interpersonal project and like communal as well. And that's the stuff you probably want to be working on anyway.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I work on communal projects, but there's also a scale limit. Like if I think of many of the communities that I've been running communities for more than 10 years, right?
Oh, wow.
But they tend to exist at the scale of 10 to 15 people at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never grown to the like 100 size. Like there's a whole tier shift that I haven't been able to manage.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift.
And that's what I'm thinking about, particularly having a conversation with effective altruism people and wondering like there's a scale thing that I'm not doing, and that's my thoughts. Like, okay, how do I do better at the scale thing?
That's a good talk. We should have that talk in a while.
We should save that for next time.
Yeah. Psychotech